Exalted Entertainment Radio. This is Era D, and you just tuned into another edition of the Love Factor. Today, we are talking about dealing with dysfunctional family, all the drama that people tend to bring your way. And you know, the holidays is right around the corner. Christmas is next week. And this is the time of the year where people just tend to bring up the past. They bring up all the old stuff, dig up all the dirt on you from when you was 5 years old. And so today we're going to deal with that and talk about how you can handle those family members or those loved ones who always tends to bring the negativity. And for that reason, I have joining me here in the studio is Pastor Howard Harding and Twana Duncan. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. How are you?
Awesome. Now, first and foremost, I understand that both of you have come from very interesting backgrounds. If you don't mind, just talk a little bit about where you came from, Pastor Howard.
Well, I grew up in the streets of Detroit, pretty much. You know, when you come from a family that grew up in a city like that, which we call the D, it's either kill or be killed in a situation like that. So what you learn how to do in a city like that, in family environments like that, is just to survive. So whatever's behavior that you learn during those times, that's the behavior you normally kind of produce in those that are coming behind you. So it's very important that you understand what functional and dysfunctional behavior is. So that's kind of where I am right now with where I came from and where I am right now.
All right, Miss Twana.
Good morning. I grew up in inner city, Indianapolis, Indiana. And I came from a home where I was a consistency of moving back and forth from Indianapolis. There's a lot of dysfunction, you know, a lot of things that we don't like to disclose about our childhood. But there was a lot of dysfunction. There was like a little bit too much streets. But I do thank God because he's always had me, you know, focused in education and always had outlets of creativity, but my home was a wreck. You know, if we just be real about it, we grew up and it was a wreck. I was so naive. I didn't even know we were poor.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was an interesting childhood.
Some people are consumed with a dysfunctional lifestyle to the point that they don't even recognize what it looks like. Pastor Howard, can you tell us what does dysfunction look like? How can you identify it? If you grew up in that and that's the norm, how can you tell a person that it's really not the norm amongst society?
We first have to understand what dysfunction is. And when you asked me to speak on this topic, I went and just looked up the word dysfunction, how it relates to people today and how it relates to just understanding what it is in society. And dysfunction is the condition of having poor or unhealthy behaviors and attitudes within a group of people. Or here's a better one. It says impaired or abnormal functioning skills. So when we see those things and we grow up around those things and it's abnormal and it's impaired, which means it's not like it's supposed to be. But if you grow up around that and that dysfunction becomes functional, then you think it's normal. So you start to live that life like it's a normal life. Like Twana just said, she didn't even know she was poor because it became so normal when it was abnormal. So you have to be very careful with that because what you end up doing is perpetuating a cycle of dysfunction if you're not careful.
Now, I understand you have a very unique way of dealing with individuals who bring negativity. Is there a way to have a peaceful life, though, when you have a great relationship with those drama-filled family members, such as, you know, you have a good relationship with your mother or your father, but you know that they're always bringing the drama. They're always bringing up negativity. They are always changing the mood because they have an attitude. How do you deal with those individuals?
I'm a very optimistic person. And not so much pessimistic. So I see the glass half full and not half empty. When you start dealing with people who are half empty people, all they will talk about is the negativity in their life and not the positivity. So I tend to try to build them up and show them the possibilities instead of the problems. And that's one of the biggest things that I think we should start doing right now with even the holidays coming up and we're getting ready to do family functions and people coming together. And you have those that are going to talk negative.
Absolutely.
You got to build them up and talk about what the possibilities and the positives are.
Twana, you're a very encouraging and a very inspiring person. How do you deal with those individuals? Considering your background, the way you came up, how have you learned to master to keep your happiness and your peace?
Well, I don't think we can master anything at that point, but you can always practice.
Okay.
One thing about it, even with my family, one thing you have to do is you have to have a standard.
Mm-hmm.
And, one thing about it is once you define who you are and understand who you are, then people will understand. You will teach them what your culture is, even though this may be the culture or atmosphere of the house, but I don't do these things, or I don't stand for that. And negativity, you don't have to respond to foolishness.
That's
so
true.
basically, I choose to be happy, and I choose to not be in arguments or have confrontations or whatever, the whole family situation is.
Do family ever look down on you for the fact that you won't respond to their negativity?
Yes,
oh,
they do.
absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Yes, yes.
Sometimes you feel like you're the black sheep or you're boxed in because you're in it. That's everywhere. That's not just family.
Okay.
That's everywhere. Some people say like it's fake.
Right.
Like, oh, you're disguising
or you
something.
think you're better than everybody.
Yeah, like you. Yes.
But
yes.
watch this. Let me just help you understand something. Let me piggyback on the word that you use. You used the word culture, and you said you talking about creating a culture. The Bible says, "Be separate and come out from among them." So, which means you got to do something different. Now, it says separation, but not isolation. What we tend to do, where we get the negativity from, is when people think that you're isolating yourself from the family or different situations, but then that's their perception. And when their perception becomes their reality, that's how they live. And that's how they think of you, and that's how they view you. So again, that's interpersonal behaviors and their skill sets having risen to the place of where they can now operate in a functional situation. Or shall I say the word that you use, in a functional culture. They can't function there.
And then when things are out of order and you're living in that culture, you don't know it's out of order. So for you to carry yourself in a standard, you're showing them a different way. We are walking, talking mentors and teachers. Your life should always be teaching something.
Yes.
So you're teaching them, okay, this is not the way. You don't have to live like that. And then sometimes people wonder, well, why are you so happy? When you're going through, you have all this, hell going on in your life. How can you be so happy? And it's a choice. Everything is a choice.
Absolutely. If you want to get in on a conversation, just click the chat icon at the bottom of your screen. If you're on the app, you can chat with us live right now. We're on the air live. Twana, I understand that you have a CD and you do music, inspirational music. Is that one of your outlets to kind of keep your peace, or how do you view your music?
Absolutely. It's a tool of ministry or missionary. You don't have to always go to different countries to, do missionary work.
That's true.
And somebody might not listen to what you say. They may not be close hand on you, or they might be going through somewhere. Music, it can be a healer of the soul in times. When we were in the world, different songs had different atmospheres. Just like that in music, in the gospel industry or inspirational, you're supposed to inspire other people.
That's right.
And that's what I hope that it does, to inspire somebody to, pick up. You going through, but pick up. You can do it.
That's true. Pastor Howard, I understand that you had a very interesting relationship with your siblings. How was that coming up?
I don't know, my siblings, we grew up in the same home, but with different mindsets, different thought process. Different goals, I would say. I was always the entrepreneur of the family that wanted more, that wanted to go out and get it, that wanted to figure out how to way of hustling and get out of a situation. When you see something as bad as what we grew up in, I wanted more. And not saying that my brothers and sisters didn't. It's just sometimes they didn't quite figure out how to get there. So as I was figuring out how to get there, leader, even though I was second to the baby, there's three up above me, but I was always the de facto leader. So sometimes with that position, you carries a lot of responsibility, but it also carries a lot of haterade with it too, because they start to look at you a little differently, like you think you're this, you think you're that.
Right. And
I experienced a lot of that early on, and we've since started to mend some of those fences, but at the end of the day, you do get a stigma that's not necessarily true. But again, like I said, when their perception becomes their reality, it becomes their world.
Wow.
So it's unfortunate, but it is real.
How do you tactfully handle negative people who are always gossiping and criticizing everyone.
I don't
mean,
give
we
them
work
the time
with
of
these
day.
people.
I don't give them the time of day.
We work with these people. Sometimes it's our mother, sometimes it's our father, sometimes it's our siblings, and all they want to do is come to you in your ear and just bring up all the negativity and bring up all the gossip and drama. How do you deal with those? I understand Pastor Howard said he don't give them the time of day, but is there a respectful way to deal with those?
Yes, I love them from a distance. I love them from a distance. And when I say I don't give them the time of day, let me make sure that I clarify that so people don't say, oh, you're passive. I'm still a human, though, and I still got feelings and emotions. But at the end of the day, when it comes to dealing with negative people, again, always, the Bible says, let your light so shine. So I always try to let whatever light that I'm trying to portray with respects to what I'm living shine in front of them. So when they're living negative and speaking negatively, I always do the opposite. I do the opposite. Because, I mean, if I'm going to show them different, I have to live different. You know, so at the end of the day, when you start talking about dealing with negative people, I'm always very careful of even allowing that to get in my spirit. Because at the end of the day, it could possibly start infiltrating my spirit, then I'll start being negative. So I'm just careful with being around negative people, period.
That's true. Twana.
For me, you know, I'm a traveling light. You know, one thing about it is, Pastor Howard says, you know, we don't necessarily have to isolate ourselves. And, you know, that's what, you know, sometimes people do. They kind of get in a box. And so, you know, you're not growing in that box. You're just isolating yourself. But, you know, to be around negative people, you know, like I said, it's a choice. Right. You choose to be happy regardless of the situation. It's your mindset. And you can, you know, change that atmosphere or not. You just choose to walk in your happiness.
That's true.
You can't do nothing about it. Sometimes you may spill over and, you know, they may get a little bit and, you know, try to change, but they may never change.
One thing I've realized just from working with people is the fact that some folks are just not happy, point blank. And so as a result, they're always trying to bring the next person down. They're always trying to kill somebody else's happiness because they're not happy. And as the saying goes, hurt people hurt people.
Yeah, that's
and
what I was
so
gonna say.
I find it interesting. Like this one lady, I'll never forget. She was a woman that was like years older than me, very seasoned woman. She was sweet as she can be, but every time I talked to her, it was like something negative was coming out. Somebody we knew passed away, and she complained because the supervisors didn't go to the funeral. Well, my thing is, you never know the next person's situation.
Right.
You can't judge whatever that person is going through. That supervisor probably didn't have the best relationship with that individual.
Right.
The supervisor probably had some stuff going on in his personal home. He might be dealing with some cancer, or somebody in his household might be sick. And so my thing is, we cannot get so hung up on what we see with our natural eyes that we begin to cast judgment. But I wanted to know, what's your take on that, Pastor Howard? How do you feel about all of that as far as dealing with those people that's just never happy?
Some people want help and some people want relief. And I say that very respectfully, because when you live in a situation like that and you begin to function in unhappiness, then you got to start taking it back. And when I'm counseling or dealing with anybody, I always deal with from two perspectives, root and fruit. The root of the issue is probably the most damaging. The fruit is just a manifestation of that root.
Wow.
So if I can get to the root of it, then we can deal with the unhappiness. And a lot of times it results back to childhood. When I'm speaking with them, I hear things that happen with their parents. I hear things that happen in relationships when they were a kid. And it keeps them from being unhappy because they keep having what are called 8-track flashbacks. And they just keep flashing back in their mind and in their hearts and in their spirit about everything that's going on with them. And it has nothing to do with today's time other than how that's resulting in their emotional well-being right now, which is their behavior. So their behavior is way off. It's dysfunctional, but it's functional because they've allowed it to be functional in their life. So we got to be careful with that.
Wow. As I was just talking about the older lady that I used to work with, she was very seasoned, but is it ever appropriate to put someone in their place that's considered your elder?
You could do things with respect.
Or is it ever appropriate to correct them at all?
When you can correct in love.
Okay.
You can correct in love. It's not so much ever what you say, but how you say it. And sometimes your response will dictate a reaction, or your response will dictate a response. Or either your reaction is going to dictate a reaction. And reactions are more emotional and responses are more intellectual. So when you think about it and consider that person's feelings, like you just said, they could be dealing with some things. So that's why they're always negative. So if you're very careful in how you respond to them, then you'll be considerate of their feelings and their emotion and whatever state that they're in at that point.
Okay. How should one respond to the haters in their lives who's always got something to say?
Oh, I always learned if they're not talking, then you're not doing anything right.
Mm.
I learned that if people are silent about it, that means you're just going with the flow and there's nothing out of the ordinary. You know, you're not extraordinary. You're just doing the average thing of everybody else. So if they're not talking about you, then you must not be doing anything.
Okay.
Haters are my motivators.
Hello.
They motivate me. They don't get me bent out of shape. They fuel my fire because at the end of the day, what I want them to do is not only be talking about it, but share it because then it brings attention to me. Sometimes that's the best advertising. When people are talking about you, good, bad, ugly, and different, because it brings attention to you, then you have to right the ship, whether it's true or not, whatever they're saying, which 9 times out of 10 it's not true. But at the end of the day, if you right the ship and you know what you're doing is right and you have a pure heart, you don't have to worry about it, because I don't.
Wow. I have a comment here or a question here that says, how do you move forward from a dysfunctional childhood and live successfully or happy as an adult?
Get to the root of it and grow.
You have to identify the root, though. What is the root? Because once you get to the root of it and then you grow from it, then what am I dealing with? Because it's just like this. If you're trying to kill certain things in your garden, you need the right things to kill them. You know what I'm saying? You just can't go out there with some bleach trying to kill weeds. And that's what normally people do. That we try to get a fix-all and a be-all, to-all, but you have to identify. That's why, again, when I'm doing any level of counseling, I always deal with the root before I start dealing with the fruit. The fruit is just a manifestation of the root. If I cannot get to the root of the problem, then how do we move forward with successful adulthood, successful relationships in any way, friendships or whatever? You have to be successful at identifying that root first.
Wow. What do you say to the good wife that's making an effort to be submissive, yet she has a husband that initiates the dysfunction? Like, for instance, he doesn't want to work, or he's financially irresponsible, or he's busy taking care of everything but home. How do you respond to that wife?
Okay. You shouldn't have been a wife in the first place if he's doing all this, because he didn't just start that as a husband. So those things should have been recognized. And then I would ask the question, where's the father at in your life to kind of direct you on how to pick and choose the right person or the best person for a situation? Because at the end of the day, if he doesn't work, if he's dysfunctional, he didn't start that when he said I do.
Wow.
He started that prior to I do, and you just didn't see the red flags, or either you ignored the red flags because you was thirsty.
And see, we always have a lot of people who end up in the wrong situation because they ignored the red flags. And I've heard stories, countless stories, of people not being happy in their marriage because of those red flags being ignored. Of course, as I just said, there are people out here who are dealing with that spouse who doesn't want to do the right thing by their other spouse, or they want to just go out and be irresponsible. And it's like, okay, when are you going to grow up? But since they're already in that position, what do they do since they've already said I do?
Well, happiness is a state of being, not a state of mind. Because if you allow somebody to control your mind, then you're in trouble. So you have to be very careful with that. So where am I at now currently? And am I happy with who I am? And a lot of times what we allow people to do is take our self-esteem from us, take our personality, our courage, and our identity away from us. So that fuels our inability to be happy with where we are. So what happens is those relationships never blossom into being very healthy and functional. So we point the finger at that other person, even though that person is the person that we said I do to, we love, and we saw those different things. But this is the whole thing. And let's talk about the wife standpoint. The Bible says he created a woman to be the help meet for the man, not help mate, but help meet. Meet what? Whatever needs he's deficient in. Because us as men, we're deficient in a lot of areas in our lives. And the woman was created for the man. If you go to 1 Corinthians chapter number 11, I believe verse 8 or 9, if I'm not mistaken, it says that the woman was created for us, not us for them. So at the end of the day, when we start looking at that, I cannot let, or you cannot let as a woman, your happiness be predicated on who I am. You have to be happy in who God created you to be. So
would you encourage that woman to stay, though? I mean, she's dealing with this lazy husband.
I would suggest that she seeks counseling, especially if they have a good church home, to seek some counseling and get him around some positive men. Get him around some men that's going to challenge him. But the thing that you got to understand about us as men, we don't want to be challenged. We do not want to be challenged because we put our own deodorant on and take our own bath. So we don't want to be challenged because we have this mentality of we're grown now and no one can tell us anything. So you have to be very careful. But again, I would always go back to the warning signs when the dating was taking place. What did you see? Because there were some red flags that was just waving all in front of your face and you refused to identify those and you ignored them. So you got to be careful. But you took some vows too. You stood before God and took some vows. So the Bible speaks about long suffering.
And people always tend to fall into that trap. But, okay, so, Twana, let's get back to you real quick. As I already mentioned, you are a singer and you have some very inspiring music. But what was the fuel? Where did you get started as far as your music is concerned? Did it fuel from the dysfunction in your life, or what was your motivation behind it?
My motivation for the music or the album?
Both.
Well, I've been doing music my whole life.
Okay.
And I think, gifts and callings are out without repentance. Sometimes they're just in you. But as far as wanting to do like an album or, releasing music, it was more of, okay, I want to say something. Mm-hmm. And I want somebody else to be encouraged. You know what I mean? How do you encourage somebody who's down?
Right,
right. There's music, many radio stations, and they can play whatever. That might not be my cup of tea, but somebody needs some empowerment.
Right.
So some of the songs did come from a very low place in my life. You Gave Me a Song. That song actually did that song the week my son was incarcerated.
Wow.
So that song was like real. It's real gloomy, but if the lyrics of it is for real. It's like, how do I get out of this funk that I'm in? Mm-hmm. And that was my avenue. My avenue was music.
How do you deal with the fact that your son is incarcerated? Because I know you're probably dealing with negativity from every angle. People coming at you talking crazy about your son. Well, you shouldn't have let him do this when he was growing up. I'm sure you probably have those family members who got something to say about the situation. But how do you deal with it?
Real talk, people know who to bring that mess to, and they don't bring that mess to me. There was a couple comments, mm-hmm. and even in the family atmosphere, during the holidays or whenever, or little smart comments like, oh, you raised your kids right, and look what happened. You should have just lived in the hood with us. Wow. You should have let your kids do whatever they wanted to do. But real talk, your job as a parent is to instill what they need.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you feel like you did the best that you could do. And obviously, he still had to make his own decisions at the end of the day.
That's right. Everybody has their own mind. You can equip people, whether they're your children, whether you're mentoring them, you can equip them, but what are they going to do with the tools?
Was there ever a point where you saw this coming? Like, did you already see him heading down that path at all, like years ago?
I will say you see all signs are always there. Even like, when you're pursuing relationships, mm-hmm. A mother-child relationship is one of the most intimate, and you're close, and I'll say there were points where I felt him disconnected, mm-hmm. and I used to ask him, because I used to, try to reach deep into him when I would be like, well, where are you? Uh-huh. And call his name. Sometimes I'll just look him in the face, mm-hmm. and just call his name. Where are you? Where is my son? The one that I instill this. And I will remind him all the things, and even all of our struggles, all of our accomplishments. And I would ask him, well, where are you? Because you're not here. And he would be like, I'm right here. And I could feel the disconnect. Mm-hmm. I knew that there was like space there. Right. And there was an area I couldn't touch. And that's the thing, with single parenthood, it's like, mother and father have a role.
Right.
Mother and father have a responsibility. And people all day can say what they want to me, but I raised my children.
Right.
I sacrificed. I did without relationships, all kind of things, just to raise my children, because I didn't want them to be raised in a certain way. Mm. And then when I did have some of those comments, one thing I was able to say is, well, he has a mother and a father. Mm. I did my role as his mother.
Right.
But,
You can't.
His father couldn't cultivate the man that he was going to be.
Right.
Let me say this. Misery loves company, and it will always invite you to a pity party. You have to decline that invitation. So when you have situations that are going on like that, where they're telling you about your kids and you're telling you about this, and they're saying things about the mother and about you didn't do this, that, and the other, you have to decline that invitation. Sometimes the best response is no response. Silence can speak so loudly if you're understanding the situation of what you're responding to. So sometimes you don't even need to say a word, because action will speak louder. So at the end of the day, just choose your words wisely and choose who you're even responding to.
That's right. Pastor Howard Harding, did you have any closing words before we wrap it up?
I just take this opportunity to say thank you so much. Understanding what a dysfunctional family is very difficult, because if you want to look at the definition of dysfunctional families, you could probably put everybody's family in a dictionary, and it'll be there. But at the end of the day, sometimes what we have to do is be the light to that family, be the salt of the earth, be that city that's set apart from that family, so they can now have something to be drawn to. Because if you are doing your job and walking this walk like you're supposed to and running this race like you're supposed to run it, then you're going to draw somebody. Absolutely. Either they're going to pull you or you're going to pull them. So it's your job to help try to pull them from that dysfunction. And it can be done. It can be done. And during these holiday seasons, don't trip off the dysfunctional family. If you go there, give everybody a hug and keep it moving, do your job and keep it moving. And that's about it.
Twana.
Real talk, love, live, and walk in it.
All right. Did you want to share also what you got going on for the holidays?
Well, I will say that in addition to my music, I do meals on the weekend, Fridays and Saturdays. Every Friday, every Saturday, with the exception of the holiday weeks. And meals are $10, desserts are $2. Sometimes you just have to use all your gifts.
Absolutely.
So hit me on my Facebook page. Let me know how I can be of assistance.
All right, that's Twana Duncan, and again, Pastor Howard Harding. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm going to leave you all with one of Twana's songs off her album. Twana, tell us about this song real quick.
Hey, hey, hey. It's just like, what you're going to do. You can't control life. Sometimes you just got to walk in your shine.
All right. Again, she is Twana Duncan, and we have Pastor Howard Harding. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm Kiara D. Catch you all next week. Be blessed.
Hey, 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 hey. Hey, 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 hey. Sometimes I don't understand why you care so much. In times I can't comprehend why you trust in us. If you need